Samuel Aguida already introduced our next panel, which is coming up just now. And the panel is on economic viability and sustainability. So it sort of zeroes in on the sweet spot between those two. And the session is hosted by Christian Remy, who is the head of R&D, group leader, for energy and resources, I should say. Sorry, Christian, at the Berlin Centre of Competence for Water. And Kristen, I think you're going to start out by introducing your panelists, and for the next hour or so, the stage belongs to your panel, and we look forward to your insights. Hi, Christian.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Timon. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this vast audience, really, that we have today in Blue Planet. I'm happy to see so many people from all over the world looking to this topic. Let me give a few words about myself. I'm Christian Remy. I'm working at the Berlin Centre of Competence for Water, and I'm a researcher in innovative water and wastewater technologies. I have an engineering background, and my work focuses a lot on sustainability of innovative solutions. And I have also been involved in many projects around circular economy in the water sector, which is the topic of today. And that's why I'm hosting and moderating this panel. I'm looking forward to a very fruitful discussion. The topic of this panel is around the upscaling and the market uptake of circular economy. So you've seen this morning, there's lots of potential there. There's lots of initiatives, lots of options to do. But still, if we look on the ground, the uptake and the upscaling and of circular economy in a broader water sector is not as fast as we wish. And so this panel will discuss a bit around the drivers and barriers for upscaling and market uptake. And before we dive into the details, I want to introduce the panelists that we have invited today, a group of experts from different perspectives of the value chain, I would say. And I would ask yourself to introduce yourself and to give your name and your company, and probably a short glimpse on your link that your work has to the topic of circular economy. So let's see, Christoph Blöcher from Covestro. Maybe you can start.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Christian. I'm happy to do so. Yeah, Christoph Blöcher, I'm from Covestro, global high-tech polymer producer, so chemical industry, plastics manufacturing. We have about 18,000 people, 50 production sites worldwide, and the link to circular economy is quite easy because about 3 years ago, we published our vision of becoming fully circular. For sure, this the main focus is the carbon cycle of our plastics, but nevertheless, the link to water is there. From my education, I'm an environmental engineer. I'm actually from TU Berlin, and Professor Jekyll, whom you met at the beginning, he was my professor when I was a student, actually. Made my PhD on membrane bioreactors for industrial water reuse already, and then moved to the chemical industry in various roles of process development, engineering, plant manager, and now in a global, let's say, support function for our sites in regard to all infrastructure processes, including water related, but also waste gas and corrosion topics and energy transition. This is my main job, and my hobby job, and I think this also relates to circularity, is that I'm the chair of the DECHEMA subject division in Germany on industrial water. So it's a group that brings together the process industry, the industrial stakeholders, and the academia, and we try to bring forward sustainable industrial water management. And one of the key topics we are dealing there with at the moment is, yes, on one hand, circularity in the water sector, but this has been, let's say, a topic for us in the past 20 years already, somehow. But one of the main topics is really what is the impact of the circular economy as such on the water sector. Because if you look at biotech, if you look at chemical recycling processes, we see real new and significant challenges upcoming. So we like to address that right from the beginning. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here and look forward to the discussion.
Great, thanks, Christoph. This is the industry perspective. I move along to Olaf van der Kolk, joining us from the Netherlands, from the company Aqua Minerals. Olaf, you're right in the circular economy business, I would say. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here, of course. My name is Olaf van der Kolk. I work for Aqua Minerals. We are based in the Netherlands. And our shareholders are drinking water companies and municipal wastewater companies, water authorities that treat wastewater. And our main task is bringing these residuals to the market. That's about 350,000 metric tons annually. So my involvement is quite practical, so you wish. I'm also involved in the IWA cluster on resource recovery, dealing with a lot of academia there, also with a lot of research that's been done. Last week, there was this conference in Shenzhen in China, where we heard a lot of interesting developments. And from my perspective, that's like a candy store, hearing all these nice developments. And I hope we can use that in a practical way soon. I studied hydrology. And later I did an MBA, trying to combine natural science with business. And I think that's the topic of today. So I hope I can add some interesting insights.
Fantastic. Great. Thanks, Olaf. And then moving on to my good friend Francesco Fatone, who is joining us from Italy, and he's associated with the University Polytechnic della Marche in Ancona. Please, Francesco, introduce.
Thank you very much, Christian, and well, thanks for inviting me here. I'm Francesco Fatone, and I'm a professor of chemical and environmental engineering at the Polytechnic Marche, where my main topic is technologies for delivering circular economy. Actually, my work was not only in developing innovative solutions in several European projects, together with the Building Competence for Water, in many of them, was a great collaboration. But I have also a role in the IWA Resource Recovery Cluster. Well, Olaf is the chair, I'm the general secretary, and I'm leading in Water Europe the Circular Water Vision Leadership Team. Why? Because I was supporting the ministry in Italy as expert for the adaptation, I would say, more than application of the circular economy package. So I have an experience about how policy should be translated into national programs. That's the challenge, because at the European level we have some directions, some ambitions, but then the translation into national and local is the real challenge, and the upgrade and upscale in existing infrastructure. Our treatment plants are already there, and how to renovate them is the challenge. So this was my main activity in terms of interface with public administration and water utilities, and this can be my contribution today at the panel.
Great. Thank you, Francesco. And I have to tell you that we have expected another participant from the utility perspective, actually from Germany, but it seems that he is stuck in the train somehow. So we will just start the discussion without him and see if he's able to join after. To frame the discussion a bit, I want to introduce a bit of a narrative here. This morning, we've heard a lot about different options and potentials and different types of circular economy which can be relevant for the water sector. And you might ask yourself, why? Okay, that's all very nice. So why don't we just move forward? And we see that there's different drivers which have been touched this morning, such as industrial symbiosis, we've heard in the Ultimate project, where we have basically two partners and a win-win situation. So this drives, of course, the implementation. We have the topic of phosphorus recovery in Germany, which is driven by regulatory framework. So there's a strong regulation saying it's mandatory for utilities to do this. Of course, then the driver is there for circular economy uptake and let's say upscaling also. And we also see that there's, for example, with the green heat, there's a market demand. There's a real market demand for circular products here from the energy sector, who is looking to decarbonize their heat supply. So they're approaching the utility and say, okay, guys, you have heat here, we want it. Let's do some business. Let's do circular economy together. So we see different drivers, but still, in many sectors and many initiatives and types of circular economy, the driver is not so clear. That's why people are probably not moving forward. And coming from the sustainability perspective, and also from the economics, I want to put two hypotheses forward to maybe as on the table to fuel the discussion. The economics of circular economy, what we see in the different initiatives and projects, is not as attractive sometimes as it seems. So let's say there is more cost involved in circular economy than you can recover by the revenue of your products. And if it's not economically attractive, people are hesitating to move forward, actually, because the question is who is taking the extra cost of this business model, be it in the, let's say, in the first years, maybe later they will become more economic, but the economics is not a driving factor often in the circular economy business. That's my first point. And the second point is the sustainability. And here I see that sustainability in a more general way is brought forward as an argument towards circular economy. But is it really transparent enough? Are we clear enough about what is really becoming more sustainable? And we've heard this morning from the World Bank that circularity itself is not the goal. Sustainability is the goal. So we want to be more sustainable in the future. And how is it reflected in the projects? Is it visible enough? Is it transparent enough to act as a driver for circular economy implementation? And these two aspects I'd like to discuss a bit along this panel. But let's make it concrete. So I put the first question to Christoph Blöcher, to the industry perspective. You said that the circular economy impacts industrial water treatment. So you expect more water management to be needed basically in the future. But how do you see the circular use of water and the circular recovery of materials from water? Is this really something that industry is looking on? And what are the main drivers for industry to look at? Is it regulation? Is it economics? Is it sustainability? I don't know. What is your view on this?
Well, if you ask what are the main drivers, I would put it a bit different. I mean, the main driver for sure is sustainability, a bit own ambition, a bit regulations. Mm-hmm. Maybe the main barrier being, for example, economics at many places still, because the same like we see in our plastics business, consumers are not really willing to pay more for our circular products, and the same applies to water. So nevertheless, I think important is that we move on with that. And what we see is that we have many places where we simply apply those circularity already. And I think this is very often hidden from the public, I would say, and even from the scientific world a bit, because we are doing that for such a long time. I mean, I just would like to refer to the example of Kalundborg that was presented, where we have a very nice industrial symbiosis and nicely presented. But most of what I've seen there, we already have implemented in our chemical parks. I mean, the chemical parks in itself are a cluster of recovering things and driving value flows from here to there. So for sure, we have their water recovery. For sure, we have their synergies between our own water treatment, our own water flows, and maybe recycling water to other plants. So a lot is there. And economically, the most attractive options are really the ones where we are very close integrated in our plants. This refers to nearly everything. This refers to recovering water. This refers to recovering materials. I mean, if we, for example, recover solvents from water, and it also refers to recovering heat. So the closer we are to the production, the more economically attractive is the recovery. But on the other hand, the closer we are, the less we like to talk about it because it's our core production know-how. So this is why I think the impression is that circularity is, for example, reclaiming municipal wastewater and feeding into our industrial plants. We also do that in Spain, for example. But the real circularity at the moment happens deeply integrated in our plants.
And is it because it's more easy because not so many different stakeholders are involved and there's no market involved? So you work with your own flows basically and shift them back, or are you also cooperating with other companies, let's say in the chemical park, and doing really, putting something on the market and getting revenue for it, or is it really internal?
A very fair point. I mean, on one hand, it's a technical reason, because if we are close to production, for example, the temperature level is higher, so it's easier to recover heat. The concentrations of substances is higher, so it's easier to recover. But you mentioned exactly the pain point currently. In the past, the chemical park was simply one company. So everything was one company and developed. And as soon as we move, and now we are, let's say, hundreds of different companies, it's it's a diversity from another perspective, let's say, we have so many different companies. And if you want to install new projects, not the ones that are running for years, but if you want to install new projects, and yeah, as we mentioned, mostly it's not the economically most attractive projects, So if you have a lot of money to share, it's easy to share it between many companies. If you have to spend money and even give yearly money, it's much more difficult. So you tend to negotiate for years, sometimes without any solution. So it makes things much more complicated. And on the other hand, if something goes wrong with the quality, for example, we heard this morning with the phosphorus how important the quality is, and this is also in our case. If you are across company borders, if something goes wrong, you tend to argue with lawyers and with contracts and with management, and you might even discuss 2 years. We really experienced that the hard way until you can resume operation of a certain recycling project. While in the past, or if those projects which we have in our own hands, a complete value chain, yeah, we just sit together, define some action items, make a root cause analysis, and 6 weeks later we are back in operation. And this is, I don't have a solution for that apart from, negotiating, making contracts, and not giving up.
Yeah. Thanks for this insight into the industry perspective. I want to give it over to you, Olaf, because you're working on this field of connecting supply and demand, I would say, in the circular economy business, and you're acting with public operators. This is probably a bit of a difference to industry. How is your impression of this market development and bringing people together and all this? Is it needed that you have a facilitator, an intersection to bring all this together, as Aqua Minerals does?
Yeah, you were asking for drivers, and I was thinking, hey, what are the main drivers, and how does it do things are brought together? And indeed, you need in every value chain, because you have so many stakeholders, the supplier, maybe transportation company, storage, processing, end user, legislation. You need somebody or an entity being in the middle, managing everything, and a believer, not somebody who's doing just because, but he really believe in the final objective. And what also helps, last year we had a huge energy and resource crisis, actually. I believe globally, but particularly in Northwestern Europe, or Europe at all. And that, strangely enough, helped us a lot. We have iron sludge from drinking water companies, which we sell to various markets for surface control, for instance. But when the energy crisis hit, a lot of industries were stopped, like the chemical industry, like the plastics industry. There were no more assets, and assets are used for a lot of iron salts. And there was a huge shortage of iron salts. And for some industries, amongst others, wastewater treatment plants need iron salts. So all of a sudden, there was a very, very strong demand for alternative resources. And that helped us a lot. So yeah, never waste a good crisis, so to say. But that, it was already, we're talking about this for years, and I'm always optimistic, and I'm becoming more optimistic. You see a trend where circular materials are becoming more and more normal. That's not easy. We have quality issues, legal issues, but it's not a big issue anymore to use alternative resources. Nevertheless, it's a big effort to make them in such quality and such a security of supply that is actually also for the customer interesting to use. But I think this trend will not stop easily anymore, I think.
And how do you see the economics, actually? So if you're receiving something from the water utilities and you're selling it on the market, can you make money from it, or is there a profit, or is it just an even business, or who's basically paying, or are the customers ready to pay extra money for circular products, let's say?
It's a very difficult question to ask. But if you focus on valorizing the residuals, the wastes, there is a financial gain. It becomes less negative or whatever. I'm absolutely positive about that. Is somebody willing to pay? Yeah, that depends on the quality, on the volume, on the scarcity in the market. It's also something about true pricing, right? So it's really difficult as an alternative resource to compete with a current market that was established over decades and very efficient. And while we are starting up and are always inefficient when you start, and you need to compete with standards and certificates that are already on the market for decades. For instance, we obtained the end of waste status. So everything from wastewater is considered a waste recovered, but there are some in the European legislation possibilities to get an end of waste status. It took us 7 years for struvite. Struvite is a phosphorus mineral that can be used as an alternative for fertilizer. 7 years, and we had to do so many chemical analysis, much more than the current fossil fertilizers. So it's not a level playing field in that matter. And the good thing again, I'm a positive person, that everybody sees it. Also the legislators and enforcers see that something needs to change to lower these barriers, making it almost not impossible, but very hard to meet these criteria and step into the real economy with these alternative resources.
Yeah, so regulation is really a challenge. That's what I heard in many projects actually.
Yes and no. Yes and no. That also, if there was no legislation, it would be also a big problem with waste and so on. And we have maybe one other thing is we have also competition within our resource recovery family, and that's between energy and materials. Energy is so heavily subsidized. I don't know all the subsidies across Europe, but in the Netherlands, methane is heavily subsidized via digestion. Sorry. But if you want to recover a biopolymer or another cellulose, for instance, you compete with the heavy subsidized digestion route. Making it easier to that. But I'm glad that there's attention for it, and we're looking for solutions.
Yeah. Thank you. Over to you, Francesco. You have, I think, a good view of the situation in Italy. I think you're coming live from Ecomondo, which is a big green tech fair in the Mediterranean. How is your feeling about utilities, industry, and the topic of circular water economy? Is it taking off? Where are the barriers from your perspective?
Well, thank you very much, Christian. Actually, I'm just out of 1 day about Water Projects Europe and 1 day about the revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. And I would like to start from here. Energy neutrality is a challenge, and as Olaf was saying, that was already a priority and will be even more a priority. So for organics recovery, that's my personal opinion, but I think can be shared, that we will be more and more oriented towards energy and much less towards organics recovery. There is a little bit of resource recovery in the revision of the directive about phosphorus, critical raw material, priority, and so on. But I think it's not enough. We had 20 years of very successful innovation actions. I've been coordinating one of the most successful, that was Marche plant, where the cellulose recovery was scaled up, and now it's a reality in the Netherlands. But all these results were not considered enough to get uptaken not only by the utilities, but also by the new directions at European level. So honestly, I'm not that optimistic, because the new directive will be in place not for 2 years, but for decades. So, well, again, as a promoter of resource recovery, I think we failed in our interaction with the policymakers, probably. On the other hand, talking about what we did as researchers, what Olaf mentioned is very important. We should start from the need of a resource, from the economic value of the resource, but we start usually from what we like to recover. So as recovery of iron salts is a priority, we should optimize that process, because from this we can create other chains. On the other hand, we researchers, we try to recover a bit of everything without a proper analysis of what is really needed from the market. So this approach of prioritization of resources, starting from the end, from the application, should drive our decisions. Last but not least, we were discussing about the economics and return on investment. I definitely agree. that's not the major driver, unless, of course, you have a scarcity of resources. This is the case of aerosols, is the case of what Aqua Minerals is very well commercializing, but it's not the case of many other resources. Well, in such a case, we have to consider that industries, this is our experience also, they want a very large economy of scale. And sometimes what we can recover from wastewater is not that tons and tons and thousands of tons that they need. So chemical industry, for example, we are working on recovery of bioplastics, and we are struggling to recover hundreds of tons, but they used to work with other sectors that can provide hundreds of thousands of tons per year. So this economy of scale coming from the water and the wastewater is something that has to be incentivized with the regulations, because we cannot compete with the chemical industry that is producing sometimes even green material. But well, the core business of the water utility is to treat water, is not to produce resources. So the economy of scale cannot be comparable, and this gap has to be filled somehow. So, well, going back to your question, Christian, I don't know if there is still some margin to work on the application of the new directive, but this is something that we need to think carefully about. So there will be more and more energy, materials, a lot of phosphorus probably. We do what was discussed before, and for the rest, I don't see too much space in terms of regulation, and this will drive the market probably.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it, that the regulation will drive the market and not the market itself will drive it. And this is also related to this, what you mentioned, we try to make a technology push. So we're pushing everything into the market, but there's no market demand for the product sometimes. So you should probably think from the market demand, what is really needed in the market in terms of circular products, and then try to base your value chains and your developments on this demand. And then it's market driven and not regulatory driven. Coming back to you, Christoph, for the market drive, because you're from industry, you are right into the market. You said that economics drive your decisions, and you're trying, of course, to do it internal, but maybe also try to engage externally. But still, it's driven by economics and also sustainability. How is sustainability in the industry? How do you see this argument to move to more circular production ways? Can you show this in a reliable way? Can you be transparent there? Is it visible enough? Can you differentiate yourself from your competitors with this argument? Because sustainability is a bit fuzzy for me. I work a lot on sustainability, and if you try to calculate it, really, it's not as easy as it sounds when you draw it quickly on the paper. So how do you think about this argument of sustainability as a driver for circular water economy?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The first question, let's say, is it really serious what we tell you in terms of our aim for sustainability? And yeah, I mean, for Covestro, it's quite clear the vision, and this is really a vision. I mean, becoming fully circular with all our plastics that are in mattresses, in insulation, in cars, etc., is really only a vision. Let's say, be honest. But I mean, we as Covestro, we would like to be climate neutral by 2035, so which is about 12 years from now. And yeah, we struggle a lot, to be honest, but that's our goal. So I think there's really a drive to be sustainable. On the other hand, there are two factors I think that are important. One thing for sure, we must somehow be able to produce economically. And yeah, I mean, as we all know, this is a challenge in itself at the moment, but let's not discuss that now. And the other question that you mentioned, I think this is very important. What is sustainable? You know, I mean, it's not, you cannot really put it in numbers. We all are used to carbon footprint, and carbon footprint is very easy. It's a global number. CO2 is the same impact, no matter whether you emit it in China or in Argentina or in Europe, wherever. And for water, it's totally different. And also for resources recovery, you know, it's so much dependent on the local situation, the water that you like to require, the quality of the water, the amount of water that's available. And therefore, if I refer to what Francesco said, you know, with regard to, is it better to recover organics from water as organics, or is it better to recover the organics and generate energy out of that? And even for this simple question, there is not one or two or yes or no. it's somehow both. For sure, if we have a relatively high concentration of organics, yes, for sure, it's better to recover it. But does it make sense, even for us? I mean, typically we recover our solvents with distillation at the end of the process chain. And does it make sense to recover the last solvent with a lot of steam and to reuse it as a solvent? Or does it make sense to leave the last 20, 30 ppm of phenol, whatever, in the water, and even treat it with aerobic treatment and activated carbon, or best for sure with anaerobic treatment to gain energy? And this is, let's say, the new thing that we are trying now as Covestro. We just started a R&D project with many partners where we really like to make kind of a study on the potential of anaerobic digestion for our wastewaters, which is not that common in the chemical industry like in the food industry. And this is exactly pointing at all the things in the wastewater which have a low concentration and a very, very high diversity of components. And this is, I think, if you try to recover that chemically, it's a tremendous effort. So in this regard, I think it will be better to use it energetically. And this is the same like this morning was mentioned, for phosphorus recovery. If you have it concentrated in the ash, it's easy to recover as a substance. And if you have it diluted in a large amount of water or whatever, it becomes more and more challenging. And they're not sustainable because, yes, you need again energy, resources, etc.
Yeah, that's exactly what we see in our projects sometimes, that if you want to push circularity beyond the efficient point, then you are investing more basically, and then you're unsustainable. I mean, to really recover stuff from very diluted, very polluted matter is probably not the most sustainable way actually. Even if it's circular, it's probably not the way to go. And I think it's very important in sustainability terms to be clear and transparent about what is really sustainable and what do we mean with sustainable, low carbon or raw materials or whatever, and to be also honest in saying, okay, we cannot, this is not sustainable in all dimensions. Maybe we invest a bit more energy, but we recover scarce materials, or we save on energy, or we save on carbon footprint. So it's not as easy in the communication, I would say, to say, okay, we're moving into the sustainable future with circular economy automatically. And this is why I wanted to explore this, how you see it from industry. Olaf,
and this is exactly, we have to be clear, you cannot rate that against each other with numbers. If you look at energy or resources, at one point in time, you have to say, well, for me now at this local situation, this is more important and I do that. And there will be no LCA, whatever calculation that will give you exact number that shows this is better or worse. That's finally, it's a decision that you have to take. What's more important at that point in time?
Yeah, that's interesting. Back to you, Olaf, and the let's say the public perspective. You're dealing with public utilities, and you said, okay, money making is difficult, but it can save on disposal costs. Let's say, how do you see it? I mean, if you look at Germany and this mandatory phosphorus recycling, this will put additional costs on the water utilities, and they will pass it by to the customers. So the customers will finally pay for phosphorus recycling in Germany. How do you see it from the Netherlands from this perspective? Do you think that this is also a good model to make it mandatory, and then is it just paid and then we push it in the market? Or, I mean, you're working differently. There's no regulatory driver behind your initiative, or is there?
Of course, there are a lot of regulations, but this mandatory model works when necessary. But I prefer another one, and that's that you make it mandatory for manufacturers to use a certain percentage of circular content. Then it becomes voluntarily, and it helps, I think, much more in innovation, because then you have on two sides people working on the same topic, on the supply side and on the demand side, and that helps bridging the gap. If it's mandatory, often you see, especially in the waste sector, this is of course not waste, but you see materials slipping out of the system because the costs are very high. And but if you have it mandatory that if you have a product, a fertilizer, so to say, and you're obligated to use 10% circular content. I think a lot will happen there, and it will help much more on innovation.
Yeah, but from the water utilities that you speak with, do you think they are ready to, let's say, to invest in this in more circular economy and say to their customers, okay, we're getting more circular now. You need to pay a little extra money for the wastewater. So because now the costs are then in Germany at least put on the customer basically, and you could also say, okay, why does not the customer of the circular product, why don't they pay for this extra cost of circular economy? It's a bit difficult. Yeah,
it's indeed, and but there are two things. Actually, in the Netherlands, both drinking water and water authorities are investing in resource recovery, and the customer indeed pays. But on the long term, the thought is that it will be paid back in lower disposal costs and higher revenues from the resources. But also, for instance, if you recover cellulose, what Francesco also mentioned, why is it a success? If you recover cellulose, you unburden your installation, so you lower the operational costs. The same is for struvite. If you recover struvite, you will lower the maintenance costs. So it's not always direct the value of the recovered substance that leads to the financial gain, but also other factors. But yes, but yeah, isn't it in the whole, not only in the water sector, but everywhere, if you want to become more circular, there's no option. And again, I talked to somebody from a water authority midst of last year, and he was complaining. Chemicals, much more expensive. Labor, much more expensive. Energy, much more expensive. But then he started laughing. He said, I invested massively in digestion. And I'm laughing now because the price back then here was 3.5 euros per meter, while half a year before it was like 30 or 40 cents. So can you imagine? So I'm not naive, but on the long run, these investments might pay off, and you may have to do the right things. And like Christoph just said, yeah, sometimes you need if it's so diluted, the investment is so high for nothing, then you just it's not worth it. But there's still enough to do where it does pay off. So yes, investments now, but the gain is in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting, and because I think that this is exactly it. I mean, this future cost that will come to us that we don't see now, but we will see in 10 years. The people that don't have it on the radar actually, so they're just looking for today and the economic situation today. But what is in 10 years or 20 years when we have real scarcity or even crisis times, and then these things pay off. So we're talking also about resilience of our system to move away from the linear economy to a circular. As we said with phosphorus, we are making ourselves more independent from anything around us, basically, if we move circular.
Resilient, independent, really, you're absolutely true on that. Yeah,
but it's difficult to valorize or to put a value on this in terms of euro. Francesco, I want to come. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Just one thing. It's also independent, but also if you are circular, the projection of the volumes and prices are much more stable than in the current markets where they go up and down. Well, mainly up last time, but it goes any direction. If you're circular, you can predict much better what your prices are and the availability of the resources. And that's also, our eyes are opened last year, I guess, and maybe Christoph can elaborate on that, but the dependence on resources is high, and it's the continuity of your organization or your production that you have a reliable,
basically. Yeah,
in a way it is. In a way, we fell asleep, I guess, last decade.
In a linear sleep. Probably. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Coming back to you, Francesco, and I heard you not complaining, but telling us that the European Wastewater Treatment Directive is not as ambitious as you would like it to be. But from this, I learned that you think that the utilities of the public world of water will not move by themselves. They need regulatory framework. They need, let's say, goals driven by politics. Is it true that this is the only major driver in the public world, which is a monopoly? So there's no competition. There's no need to be better than your neighbor. Is it like this that water utilities need regulatory framework to move forward?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks a lot, Christian. Well, so let's start with saying that the European Directive is highly ambitious on many targets, but not on materials recovery. So, and this is again bringing me to the concept that the priority of water utilities for the next years and decades will be on the decreasing the nutrient level and treated effluent, energy neutrality, carbon footprinting. So again, ambitions are very high. But again, none on circular economy. There is a lot of attention on wastewater reuse. We are talking now about materials and energy, but yeah, of course, water scarcity, water stress is increasing all around Europe, not only in the south. And I would like to start from this point. So let's start from water reuse. The regulations of water use was very fragmented. Now we have the minimum quality standard at European level, and different countries are doing their own national legislation that will have a major push also with the new European Wastewater Treatment Directive is anyway promoting water use. So in this case, my own experience, I see much more interest than in the past to apply technologies that are very solid, because to reach the quality for water use, we know what to do as tertiary treatment. So we don't need innovation. And sometimes the public water sector is a bit adverse to innovation uptake and so on. So we need consolidated technologies. But with this driver, we see honestly a huge interest in wastewater treatment and reuse, even because another challenge that was mentioned before, the public health. How to assess the risk environment to public health was not, let's say, guided homogeneously all around Europe. Now we have the new guidelines for water use risk management, and with this we know how to manage the risk, and there is a push from the legislative point of view. So the practice is guided, and the legislation is promoting. And practically, I see more interest, more questions from the utilities to apply this approach. That for them is innovative because it's new, not because it's innovative from a scientific point of view. So I think, yes, the regulation is the major driver, although it's a monopoly, but maybe even because it's a monopoly. So first of all, they have to do what the legislation is saying. And in terms of, let's say, other drivers, well, more and more utilities, this is my feeling, they like to be front runners. But once they are front runners with the prototype, it's fine. So they want to be the first to develop the first innovation, but then to promote an economy of scale that is going outside their own boundaries, then the velocity is decreasing. Maybe Olaf and Christoph can help with this concept later on. They have more experience than me. So having groups of front runners and saying, okay, you're front runner, and you will have incentive to create a group of front runners to create economy of scale can be another major driver. Last but not least, water regulation in terms of tariff. Now in Italy there will be the new regulations for the water tariff, and there will be more attention, for example, for water use. So this is moving the interest again for wastewater treatment and reuse. Probably there will be something on phosphorus. We will see this will follow from the legislation from the European directive. And if so I'm talking about water pricing and water tariff. If this is clear in the water tariff, then all the business plans of utilities can change. And this can be another very relevant driver that is not directly related to legislation, because water tariff can upgrade, let's say, the main objectives of the legislation. So yeah, regulation and legislation are probably the major drivers, of course, for public utilities. We're talking about public water. If we move to industries, well, things are different there, because, well, the economics are driving in the vast majority of the case, but also more and more the sustainability, because more and more they have sustainability indicators in relation to their core business that are influenced by water use. So in such a case, even when the economics are not that relevant and there is no legislation to promote very much resource recovery and so on, well, they go towards circular economy pathways. So for water industry, honestly, legislation is not that crucial as it is in the public sector. Of course, this is all my personal opinion.
Yeah, of course. But it's interesting. I also see quite a big difference between the industrial sector and the public sector in terms of drivers. How do you see the sustainability perspective for the utilities? I mean, there's no market, there's a monopoly, but still there's often public control of the utility. So there's a government, there's a mayor or whatever, and they have sustainability goals. They have political initiatives and agendas. Is this kind of a not like a regulatory framework, but as a more soft driver to say, okay, guys, push for sustainability. We want to see circular solutions also in the public frame, or is it more that they look on pollution, they look on clean water, and they look on low tariffs, probably also from a political point of view, and circular economy is lower in the agenda? How do you see this sustainability driver for public utilities?
Thank you. Well, of course, we should base our considerations on the sustainability reporting that currently utilities are doing. Many of them are, it's mandatory for many of them. And well, I think that the priorities at the moment are on energy footprint and, well, energy optimization, let's say, carbon footprint and optimization, and circular economy in terms of materials. We can have water as first, water use, and materials, well, it's something that where is a market, they put it as added value. It's still considered as an added value in sustainability reporting, but from what I see, is not one of the top priorities. So on the other hand, we still don't have standard, well, the ISO is working on that, but still the degree of complexity is very high to have standard indicators, circularity indicators. So it's very difficult for the regulatory boards. I'm talking about WAREG, I mean, to think about how to put, let's say, some incentive for circular economy when there are no standards to calculate how much circular is a water utility. So as long as we don't have these indicators, it's very difficult to expect circular economy to be scaled up in the sustainability reporting.
That's what I think, that sustainability is a nice catchword, but when to make it clear and solid, you need indicators, indices, whatever, reporting, and it's not so easy actually to report on this, even if there's no standard. In the industry, how do you see it, Christoph? I know that there is this reporting initiative coming along with the European sustainability report, corporate sustainability reporting, I think it's called. It's very top-down reporting. Can this be a driver that everybody needs to report on sustainability, and or do you how do you see this role that we make transparency basically and see who is circular and who is not?
Now I really have to take care of what I can say in this large global round.
We're between us here.
Yeah, no, I mean it's we tend to try to imagine that simply putting in more numbers and papers and reporting increases sustainability, and this is a bit actually I'm not really deeply into that, but if I see it right, there's a CSRD reporting requirement. So in the future, we need to report how much or which percentage of our water is circular. You know, how which percentage we really reuse more than one time. Actually, this is a question which I always had on my agenda at Covestro, to pick one model plant and to really calculate that, you know, how much water we recycle, how many times. We never did that because the effort is tremendous. And in the end, to be honest, it's nice to know for me as a water guy, but you don't save water by that, you only know a bit more. And now look at, for example, cooling circuits. You know, if you want to have a higher share of recycled water, simply run your cooling circuits more inefficiently, run more water in the loop, and you have a higher share. And all the water that we really use multiple times in our processes, I mean, counter current washing stages with acid, with base, etc. All this, I mean, shall we measure all that and calculate all that and report that? And what's the benefit, I only know the numbers that will come out there won't help us much. The same like the numbers that are published currently are nonsense. I mean, in the German statistics agency, they publish that only 8% of the water that industry reuses is reused multiple times, which is totally wrong. If we would do so, we would not survive. And the reason is simply that they only allocate or count water that really crosses boundaries, from a chemical park to the, and then if you have a reverse osmosis, then it's calculated. But if you recycle it internally, you never count it. And I don't really have a solution for that, honestly, for this. I only would like that we, maybe relax a bit more in terms of that we try to grab everything with numbers. And what I see, at least I'm really the technical guy, so I don't have the full view, but the rating agencies, the investment companies, they really accept more qualitative approaches. And I'm absolutely happy that we as Covestro did not publish any water goals in terms of we save 10% of water until whatever, but that our water program is based on a qualitative approach to sit exactly together locally with the sites, with the stakeholders, to see in the water scarce areas who uses water apart from us, how we can maybe use synergies, and how is our impact on the surrounding, and what, let's say, new developments might pop up. And at least to my understanding, in the investment sector, it's accepted that this is the right approach. My feeling is that in reporting, we still need to fill many numbers that nobody really will help.
Yeah, and it's too much top down, very global, and not really making it transparent what you do, basically. And then if you cannot see it in reporting, then it's really difficult to sell your story. So I very much like this approach of more qualitative, locally based examples of sustainable management, basically. Yeah. Olaf, in your business selling Aqua Minerals materials to the customers, would you profit from a sustainability label? So would you profit from a more, let's say, regulated sustainability framework, saying, okay, this product has a green stamp on it and it's certified by a certain sustainability standards? Do you think that this could push sustainability in this market? How's your feeling?
After the last discussion, I was hoping you would ask me this question, because yes, some customers do ask us what the origin of the resource is. Is it a truly circular or recovered material? And maybe people can say I'm wrong, but I can't find any certificate that gives that proof. We had a cradle-to-cradle certificate, which comes near, but still is not proof that it's circular. And there's demand for it because our customers want to become more circular. And we have other discussions here within the company. How do we want to be, as the Netherlands, as Europe, as the water sector, become more circular when we don't know what is circular, or what's considered circular, or what number? I agree. I'm not agreeing with the numbers and reporting on them. But we need to find something so we can, because measuring is not bad. Useless numbers are useless, but measuring how we are performing, where the low-hanging fruit is of course very important. And we know where to put the energy on. But if we don't have a standard, it's difficult. And we're not really struggling, because everybody feels what's good, what's circular, recovering, using recovered materials is of course good, but really comparing one value chain to the other is really difficult.
Yeah. But probably is needed somehow to really show people that what are the better solutions and what are maybe not the best solutions, because the circular economy is a vast bunch of topics and projects and initiatives, and where is really the low-hanging fruits, as you said. Francesco, do you think that R&D can play a role? I know that you are very much involved in European R&D projects. Is it a role of R&D to evolve more on the sustainability certifications, labels, indices? So we need, or is it more like the standardization bodies? How can we move forward to make sustainability more impactful as a driver here and more transparent?
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I see two directions. Of course, we have to move towards standardization bodies to have our final product as close as much as possible to the standard. But I have an example. Energy water. We started this project in 2014. This finished in 2017, and the standard was there in 2020 for energy footprint in urban wastewater treatment plant. Now we have the European standard, and I think utilities that are using this standard are very few. And we have a European standard. Why? Because it took so many years. And meanwhile, the energy audit was obligatory for utilities, so they started to develop their own, methodologies. It was anyway, a standard is not an obligation, it's a standard. So time to standard sometimes is very long and has to be thought much in advance compared to legislation. And then when there is a standard, this should be coupled with legislation. If there is a standard, legislation should say, okay, use this standard. Even when you don't have an ISO standard, even though you have the first draft, so you should mention this standard clearly. So this kind of example are bringing me to more push towards the official connection with policymakers in official meeting. We are writing a lot of policy papers in our projects. And sometimes we wonder if we are doing the right impact. We should do our best to be formally invited in the parliament, to be formally invited when they do the interview, because in such a case, there will be a formal minute where your opinion will be reported. So 2 lines are much more impacted than a very good policy papers sometimes, because it's formal. And this is something that is missing, because it's difficult to get this kind of formal interview. We say audizioni in Italy. So the more we have this, the more we will be in the protocol of legislation. Maybe then we will not be accepted as with our concepts and opinion, but we have to be there. Otherwise, our policy papers will be fantastic concepts, but we don't know who is really reading them.
They will end up in the drawer finally. Yeah. This is a very nice ending point. I think that R&D initiatives are important, but they need to have an impact on actual policy. Without it, it's just nice to know, but we will not change anything. Looking at the time, I'm thinking that we are almost done with our panel. The hour is full. I could continue the discussion for longer, actually, because it's very interesting. Thanks a lot to you guys. It was very insightful to have these different perspectives on the topic of circular water economy from all the different angles, and especially focusing on economics and sustainability. I think these are 2 crucial aspects when we want to upscale. Before I hand over back to the organizers, I would just give you a sneak preview that we as KWB will be involved in a project, a coordination activity starting next year, funded by the European Commission, exactly on this topic: how to boost circular economy solutions in the water sector, how to promote market uptake. And we touch upon the issues that were discussed today, hopefully, and come back to you soon. So stay tuned. And with this, I think I can give it back to you, Timon. And thanks again for your participation, guys. I enjoyed it. Thank you. Back to you.
Thanks. Bye.
Right. This is so amazing. Thank you so much, Christian. Fascinating stuff. And also congrats on your timing. It is 3:20 p.m. right on the spot. So this was just perfect. Thanks a lot for that, Christian. Also, thank you to Olaf, Francesco, and Christoph for this fascinating discussion.